Thank you for joining. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Hello, hello. Shout out to Uraraka. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Elia. Shout out to Lila. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to Christy. Shout out to Elia, I got you. Shout out to Jennifer. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Zaya or Zia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. No worries, Matt, Christy, I understand. Thank you for joining today. Shout out to Uraraka, Elia. Shout out to Lila, Matt, Christy. Shout out to Jennifer. Shout out to Zia. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Vanessa. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I know it's almost Christmas time. Also, this month is kind of going by fast. How's everyone? How are you, Jennifer? Shout out to Harley. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Genesis. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Josh. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Gabriella. Shout out to Dennis. Shout out to Husna. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Erica. Shout out to Killian. Shout out to Melina. Thank you, Matt, Christy. Shout out to Anthony. Shout out to Whistle. Shout out to Martha. Oopsie. Martha. Shout out to Nico. Shout out to Donna or Dana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Vinesh. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Noah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Shayna. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Indy. Shout out to Elizabeth. Shout out to Amina. Shout out to Eliza. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Sina. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Shelby. Shout out to Inosuke. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Pixel Dust. Shout out to Davina. Shout out to Paisley. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Lindsay. Shout out to Luana. Shout out to Quilly. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to Gwyneth. Shout out to Alicia. Shout out to Zenitsu. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Zyla. Shout out to Maine. Shout out to Easton. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to McKinley. Shout out to Brayden. Shout out to Ray. Shout out to Sion. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Jessie. Shout out to Reina. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Cordella. Shout out to Samantha. Shout out to Clarissa. Shout out to Tori. Shout out to Noah. Shout out to Adriana. Shout out to Candace. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Kaisen or Kaisen. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aria. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Cat's Eye. Shout out to Callista. Shout out to Samantha. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Yunche. Shout out to Indy. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Savannah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Rain. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Emma. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Oscar. Thank you so much for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Tiara. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Mason. Shout out to Kyla. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Terrain. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Annika. Shout out to Ritaj. Shout out to Santiago. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Jackson. Shout out to Samaya. Shout out to Gnarly. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Iconic. Shout out to Shania. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Kensington. Shout out to Erica. Shout out to Silver. Shout out to Jael. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ariani. Shout out to Eurisha. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Jenny. Shout out to Faye. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Cassie. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to these people. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. Thank you so much for being here. On to the next page. Shout out to Tiara. Shout out to Lois. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Leanna. Shout out to Cheyenne. Shout out to Oscar. Shout out to Cordelia. Shout out to Juliana. Shout out to baby Sasha. Sasha. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Diana. Shout out to Timothy. Shout out to Naira. Shout out to Chastity. Shout out to Naira. Whoops, I spelled it incorrectly. Sorry. Shout out to Naira. There we go. Shout out to Annie. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Sunzi. Shout out to Gnarly. Shout out to Kiana. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Boston. Shout out to Allie. Shout out to Tori. Shout out to Harlow. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Galaxy. Shout out to Alina. Shout out to Caleb. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're halfway to 100 likes. Shout out to Zara. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Ness. Shout out to Kenneth. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Tice. Shout out to Addison. Happy birthday. Shout out to Rain. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Jovelyn. Shout out to Noelle. Shout out to Honor. Shout out to Liz. Shout out to Jessa. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Rosalie. Shout out to Paul. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Noelle. Shout out to Hazel. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Danny. Shout out to Faith. Shout out to Reagan. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Limber. Shout out to Courtney. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 100 likes. Shout out to Reagan. Shout out to Azur. Shout out to Elizabeth. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Karina. Shout out to Domenica. Shout out to Ayar. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Fatima. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Macy. Shout out to Marcos. Shout out to Catalea. Shout out to Jill. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Hazel. Shout out to Paulina. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Faith. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Douglas. Shout out to Kate. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lanaya. No, how do you pronounce it? Lanaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Mimi. Shout out to Carolina. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Brielle. Shout out to Savannah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Tessira. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Sparkle. Shout out to Michael. Shout out to Jack. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Josie. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to La Kenya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Josie. Shout out to Miko. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Angie. Shout out to Kiki. We're almost at 100 likes. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Gwen. Shout out to Magnolia. Shout out to Ronnie. Shout out to Mr. Who. Shout out to Christina. Only 5 more likes until we get to 100. Thank you so much for being here. Christina, you're right here. Shout out to Elena. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sirena. Shout out to Maiten. Shout out to Radha. Happy birthday. Shout out to Rainy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Tiana. Shout out to Emerson. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Zoe. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Carly. Thank you for 100 likes. Thank you for being here. Subscribe to my channel if you like the shout outs. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Shout out to Sana. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to Shayna or Shina. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Zia. Sorry, or Zia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to James. Shout out to Richu or Raiku. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Vicky. Shout out to Marta. Shout out to Matthew. Shout out to Clara. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Mari. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Charlie. Shout out to Gary. Shout out to Alessia. Shout out to Tyla. Shout out to Jada. Shout out to Soon Min. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to June. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Marlene. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Deborah. Shout out to Jennifer. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Zucchini. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ishana. Shout out to Aurora. Shout out to Cicely. Thank you for subscribing. Whoops, did I spell your name wrong? Cicely. Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to Gabe. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jensen. Shout out to Vanessa. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Claudia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Chevelle. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Fizzy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jasper. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Cherish. Shout out to Joel. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kendeli. Shout out to Autumn. Shout out to Giselle. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Caroline. Shout out to Masco. Shout out to Mary. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sarah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Annalise. Shout out to William. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Rosa. Shout out to Burkay. Shout out to Whitney. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Evangeline. Shout out to Hanin. Shout out to David. Shout out to Malia. Shout out to Coco. Shout out to Matthew. Shout out to Julie. Shout out to Mariano. Shout out to Carmen. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Cameron. Shout out to Ava. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. Shout out to Oliver. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Alani. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to JC. Thank you for subscribing. Or Jace. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Anissa. Shout out to Rosalia. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Devin. Shout out to Resty. Shout out to Anushka. Shout out to Zamba. Shout out to Valentina. Shout out to Jalen. Shout out to Izzy. Shout out to Dawson. Shout out to Sabrina. Shout out to Rosie. Shout out to Selena. Subscribe to my channel if you like the shout outs. I also post other content that I hope you can check out. Shout out to Lizzie. Shout out to Haley. Shout out to Gally. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Vivian. Shout out to Dan. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Yoai. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Anushka, I got you right here. Shout out to, is it Iaria? Is it an I or an L? Aria, let me know. Did I spell it correctly? Yeah, Anushka, I got you right here. Shout out to Vivian, I got you. Shout out to Sanat. Shout out to Gabriel. Vivian, I got you right here. Shout out to Gigi. Shout out to Cordelia. Shout out to Walter. Shout out to Catalina. Shout out to Cheyenne. Shout out to Dexter. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 200 likes. Shout out to Andrea. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Jace. Whoops, I spelled it wrong. Shout out to Jace. Shout out to Maite. Shout out to Archer. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Easton. Shout out to these people. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 200 likes. Subscribe if you like my shout outs. I do shout outs every day. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out as well. Thank you for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Haven. Shout out to Dara. Shout out to Lada. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Ragut. Shout out to Brielle. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Shayna. Shout out to Mally. Shout out to Serena. Shout out to Adrian. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to No Trust. Shout out to Kashana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Siva. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Jimena. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Scarlett. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 200 likes. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Faith. Shout out to Jana or Jana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to Walker. Shout out to Lizzie. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Luke. Shout out to Finn. Shout out to Soraya. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Jude. Shout out to Judah. Shout out to Alice. Shout out to Sanaya. Shout out to Gannon. Shout out to Silas. Ava. Shout out to, is it Aileen with the, let me see. Oh, Ellen? Sorry. Eileen? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Waylon. Shout out to Julian. We're only 30 likes away from 200 likes. Shout out to Pepper. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Dallas. Shout out to Amelia. Amila. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Shannon. Shout out to Anabia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Dylan. Shout out to Victoria. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Sadie. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Ziana. Or Ziana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Emmy. Shout out to Madeline. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go get water. I'll be back like in a few seconds. Sorry about that. Shout out to Karina. Excuse me. Shout out to Alicia. Shout out to Faith. Shout out to Alina. Shout out to Archie. Shout out to Miss May. Shout out to Lark. Shout out to Rena. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Maverick. Shout out to Toriana. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to McKenna. Shout out to Gianna. Shout out to Everly. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Doris. Shout out to Teresa. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to, is it Lito? Shout out to Charlie. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to Phoebe, or Phoebe. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Rylan. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Danny. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Amanda. Shout out to Meredith. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying the shout outs. We're almost at 200 likes. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Salish. Shout out to Gustavo. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Helmi. Shout out to Barlene. Shout out to Ace. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Kate. Was it Kate? Shout out to Genesis. Shout out to Zozo. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Kiana. Shout out to Therese. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mabel. Only 3 likes away from 200 likes. Shout out to May. Shout out to Ace. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Mateo. Shout out to Ricky. Shout out to Zainab. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Delilah. Shout out to Sylvie. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Lincoln. Thank you for 200 likes. Shout out to these people. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my shout outs. On to the next page. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out and support as well. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Angie. Shout out to Cam. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to River. Shout out to Sam. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Molly. Shout out to Alondra. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Barlene. Shout out to Kyra. Shout out to Delilah. Shout out to Safia. Shout out to Sana. Shout out to Nova. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Christian. Shout out to Lennox. Shout out to Juju. Shout out to Felicia. Shout out to Daniel. Shout out to Ileana. Whoops. Shout out to Ileana. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to John V. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Story. Shout out to Toa. Shout out to Carissa. Story, I got you right here. Shout out to Louise. Shout out to Ileana. Shout out to Ryan. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Denise. Shout out to Anastasia. Shout out to Dorsa. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Delilah. Shout out to Keith. Shout out to Zainab. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Savannah. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my shout outs. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Prerita. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Joe. Shout out to Raf. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Kaden. Shout out to Taylor. Shout out to Christina. Shout out to Nevaeh. Whoops, I spelled it wrong. Shout out to Nevaeh. Oh no, I spelled it right. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Luana. Shout out to Jimmy. Shout out to Nani. Oops. Shout out to Nani. Shout out to Junior. Let me write Nani again because I messed up like really bad. Shout out to Nani. Shout out to Yuki. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Juan Cruz. Shout out to Destiny. Shout out to Tiffany. Shout out to Amal. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Riri. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Anushka. Shout out to Isla. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Meadow. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Justice. Shout out to Travis. Shout out to Chrissy. Shout out to Zara. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to JC. Shout out to Madison. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 300 likes. Shout out to Near. Shout out to Fabian. Happy birthday. Is it Fabian? Or is it Fabiana? Shout out to Jay. Shout out to Sue. Shout out to Rachel. Happy birthday. Shout out to Jennifer. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Junior. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying the shout outs. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Zelda. Shout out to Harmony. Shout out to Aria. Shout out to Clara. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Jake. Shout out to Mita. Shout out to Lena. Shout out to Mita. Oh, I already put Mita, sorry. Shout out to Rajuan. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Karina. Shout out to Paxton. Shout out to Martina. Shout out to Zoya. Shout out to Kenzie. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Gabriella. Shout out to Golden Rose. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the shout outs. Shout out to Bella, happy birthday. Shout out to Aria. Shout out to Alisa. Shout out to Macy. Shout out to Karina. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Momo. Shout out to Arizona. Shout out to Alexia. Shout out to Resty. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Also, subscribe to my channel if you want to support my shout outs and also support my other content. Check it out. I hope you like it. Okay, on to the next page. Thank you for being here. We're almost at 300 likes, only 50 more likes. Shout out to Freya. Shout out to Manon. Shout out to Alondra. Shout out to Shaylish. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Julie. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Joelle. Shout out to Serenity, happy birthday. Shout out to Kai. Shout out to Simone. Shout out to Kaylee, or Kylie, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Juan. Shout out to Jesus. Shout out to Daliana. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Francis. Shout out to Emery. Shout out to Ibanet. Shout out to Inez. Shout out to Tiffany. Shout out to Jihan. Shout out to Z Kyun Wei. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Destiny. Shout out to June. Shout out to Bianca. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Zarmani. Did I do it? Zarmani. Oh yeah, I spelled it correctly. Shout out to Damaris. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my shout outs. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Alina. Shout out to Najwana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Zoya. Shout out to Rain. Shout out to Super Super Kai. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Oliver. Shout out to Nim. Shout out to Rahul. Shout out to Jade. Shout out to Aymara. Shout out to Hope. Shout out to Jade. Leave a like if you're enjoying my live stream. Shout out to Gina. Shout out to Bixby. Oh, how was Bixby. Oh yeah, Bixby. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Venetia. Shout out to Kyra. Shout out to Asia. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Srisha. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Hattie. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Samantha. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 300 likes. Shout out to Kaden. Shout out to Jesse. Shout out to Wu Kang. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Hattie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jackson. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Epic. Shout out to Rena. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Carter. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Demir. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Veda. Shout out to Julie. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 300 likes. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Trevor. Shout out to Tanisa. Shout out to Vale. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Marina. Shout out to Ian. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Catherine. Shout out to George. Shout out to Piper. We're 30 likes away from 300 likes. Shout out to Nala. Shout out to Annie. Shout out to Holly. Only 24 more likes away from 300 likes. Shout out to Tony. Shout out to Savannah. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my content. Shout out to Emerson. Shout out to Cassava. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Kaden. Shout out to Avina. Demir, I got you right here. Demir. Shout out to, excuse me, Janet. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Base. Shout out to Sawyer. Shout out to Cecilia. Shout out to Kamoya. We're almost at 300 likes, only 10 more likes. Shout out to Alicia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Devin. Shout out to Dylan. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Miko. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Layla. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Reina. Shout out to Julia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bushra. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ivy. Shout out to Luke. Shout out to Austin. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to McKenna. Shout out to Lincoln. Shout out to Ahana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Happy birthday. Shout out to these people. Okay, like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. Please subscribe if you want to continue knowing when I do the next shout out. I normally shout out every day. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to write your name. I truly appreciate it. I will see you next time. Have a great day or have a great night. Take care. Thank you for being here. Bye.